just really building the friendship and just nurturing the space for your friends to even feel comfortable, because a lot of times a strong friend doesn't feel vulnerable. Like, it's nothing personal, but because they've been taught or learned or what have you, acquired this, mindset or attitude that I have to be strong for the sake of myself and others.
Hey, girlfriends. Welcome back to another episode of Girlfriends and Goals. We're your hosts, Miosha
and Samaria.
This podcast is a space where we'll talk about friendships, life goals, a little bit of pop culture, and all things womanhood.
Our top goal this year is to grow our podcast audience. So if you're new here or you're an avid listener of this podcast, please subscribe, leave us a 5-star rating, write a review, and be sure to share this episode with a girlfriend or two.
Before we jump into our first segment, I want to introduce our special guest for today, Autumn. Welcome to the Girlfriends and Goals podcast.
Hello, ladies. Thank you so much for having me. It feels really good to be here.
Yes, we're very excited for you to be here. So if you can just take a moment to just introduce yourself, tell our audience a little bit about you, and later on they'll hear that you are the perfect guest for this topic.
Awesome. Yes. So everyone, as they so graciously introduced me as, I am Autumn. I am a licensed mental health therapist based in Maryland, and I have been in the field for a number of years, and I became a clinical licensed therapist in 2020 on the brink of everything that was happening in the social climate. And in that moment, I realized how being in that social political climate, so to speak, everything that was happening with race, the elections, and just life in general, my mental health definitely was taking a toll. And coming right out of grad school, I realized that this was something that I needed to pay attention to. And instantly I thought, I can't be the only one going through this. And so the Soul Reasons was born. And the Soul Reasons is my mental health brand on Instagram, which I've been running since, about graduation time of 2020. And I am a passionate and devoted advocate for not only mental health awareness, particularly for Black and Brown folks, but also tearing down and dismantling the systemic oppression that is engraved in our society today, because it has a major impact on our mental health as well, in a number of different ways, in many different life areas. And I think the more that I talk about it, the more that I collaborate with other people who want to talk about it, the more that we can raise awareness and things can get done. So that's my tidbit.
All right.
Yes. Thank you so much. That is wonderful. And again, we are so happy to have you on and so glad that we follow the Soul Reasons.
Yes, likewise. And, I'm just so big on community and conversation. So anytime I'm, able to be a guest on such a great podcast, such as, this one, I am just like, yeah, I have to seize the opportunity, because if it's not talked about, not much is going to happen. We gotta have the talks. We have to have the talks.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right, we're going to jump into our first segment today, which is Girl, What's Good, where we talk about something that we've been loving for the past couple of weeks. Could be a book, a store, a bottle of wine, anything that you've been loving. So Autumn, what's been good with you?
I love this question so much, because it really makes me sit back and think, like, about my self-care check-in, I guess you could say. Like, what have I been doing that I like to do, that it's been bringing me joy and pleasure, which is so important. I want to say it's been a makeup product that I've been using. This It's a brow gel and pencil from Lip Bar, another Black, woman owned business out of Detroit, who started off as just lipstick, and now she's just expanding. She's all in Target, and I love makeup. I love makeup. I love everything about it, but I was hesitant about brow gels, and all the girls in the trends were really into it. And I was just like, let's give it a try. And if I'm going to give it a try, I'm going to go with the brand that I love and trust, and Black owned and woman owned. So it was a no brainer. I tried it the first time. I was like, yep, I'm obsessed. And I have it on right now. And I'm just like, can I stop looking at them? So yes. Yeah, that's been something that's been really making me happy and bringing me joy, and that's been what's good with me. Because yeah,
Okay.
I had to splurge a little.
Yes, I
Okay.
love that brand. I remember seeing them on Shark Tank like years ago, and just to like see like where they are now. I'm pretty sure it was the lip bar because like the sharks weren't seeing the vision that they had, and so like I don't
Mm.
think they signed them. But yeah, so I'm just so glad that they are where they are and they kept on going. So yeah, I have never tried brow gel. I've had people try it on me, but I'm not really skilled with makeup, so I might try it now that you said it. I might struggle a time or two, but
I love it.
yeah, Miosha, what's good with you?
What's been good with me is actually an app, and it's called the Wonder Weeks. And yeah, so I've been using this app for about the last 2 years, and this app helps you stay on top of your child's mental development.
Mm.
And so the way that it works is based off of your child's, I believe, gestational age. It will predict the different mental leaps that they'll experience the first 2 years of life.
Mm,
And so now that I'm coming up towards the end of using the app, I can definitely say that I highly recommend it. And
Mm.
especially for new moms, or even if you've already had a child, but maybe you didn't use it before, it really helps you to be in tune with what's going on with your child from a development standpoint and skill standpoint. But I think more importantly, just understanding kind of some of the discomfort that may come along with those mental leaps. So it predicts it. So it'll say, like, hey, in 3 weeks, your child will have this mental leap and they'll learn these different skills.
mhm,
And more importantly, during this time, you may want to exercise additional care and concern and patience to help them through those leaps. So, for example, they may regress on their sleep. They may eat poorly, more fussy, more clingy. So, I don't know, for me, just as a first time mom, having that guide has really helped me. And I will say I was very skeptical at first. I'm
Mm.
thinking there's no way that an app can predict my child's behavior. And I actually started using the apps from birth. And I can say every single leap that has happened has been scarily accurate. So if you're a first time mom, you're looking for something to help you with the developmental changes that happen in the first 2 years of your child's life, I'd highly recommend it. It's called the Wonder Weeks.
nice. Okay,
I
cool.
love
That sounds
that.
really neat, right?
I
it's
love that.
it's scarily accurate to the day, where you can see like your child, their mind just kind of developing and them
Mhm,
learning different things. And you're just like, how does this app know my child? But it is science based. And it's
Hmm.
based off of I think, gestational age, not the actual date of birth. So that's how they're able to make it so accurate.
how long? I guess how long do you use it for? Is there like a time frame that is the cutoff, or?
Yes, so it tracks the 10 leaps that happen within the first 2 years of life. So from birth until 18 months. And the first leap, I think, happens at about 4 weeks.
Mm,
And then I think the last one is around 18 months ish.
yeah.
And each leap lasts about 4 to 6 weeks. Some are longer, some are shorter. But yeah, you can definitely see the changes in your child's behavior. And they also have like a skills section where it's like, oh, when this leap is over, your child may likely be able to understand or do this list of things. But of course, it's a wide range. Every child develops at different points, but the leaps and changes in behavior is very accurate.
Okay, cool beans. Yeah, that's really good to know. So my girl, what's good is actually this show on YouTube by Tahir Moore. It's called Wording is Hard. And it started in 2020, and I've been watching it since it started. So I can't believe like I haven't ever had this as my girl, what's good. But it's a show based on English being hard. And so they have to like pronounce certain words, spell certain words, guess the definition of certain words. And it's usually like two contestants, and then they have the quote unquote teacher who's in the back, like saying, okay, you were right and you were wrong. I feel like I'm not doing it justice, but let me tell you, like it's amazing, this show. It's hilarious. Tahir is a comedian, so they're always telling jokes on there and stuff like that. So if you are interested in words, if you're interested in like English, or you just want to get a good laugh because people mess up, because sometimes the simplest words like,
The ones to take you out.
yeah, they'll have you second guessing your education, honestly, like, or the educational system in the US, because that's how bad it gets sometimes. But it's absolutely hilarious. It's one of my favorite shows. They come out with new episodes on YouTube every single Wednesday. And again, it's called Wording is Hard. So yeah, 100% recommend.
Okay.
Love that.
All right. So before we get into the topic, since it is Women's History Month, every week we want to make sure that in addition to talking about topics that do primarily affect women, we want to shout out a woman-owned business. And so today's person that we're highlighting is Sania, who is from the brand on Instagram, Flynanced, and that's fly.nanced. And what she does is she helps, I'm literally looking at her Instagram page, and it says, helping 9-to-5 hotties earn more, build wealth, and travel. And I absolutely love that. And it's a wonderful Instagram page that actually Autumn recommended to us. So if you would just go ahead and check out fly.nance, we'll make sure that we leave her information in the description box so that you guys can check her out. And yeah, just wanted to shout out Sania today.
All right, we're going to jump right into today's topic, which is mental health and womanhood. And we wanted to cover this topic because, one, we think it's a great way to kick off Women's History Month, but two, we know that many of us have gone through a lot within the last 2 years. And we believe that now more than ever is a good time to really be dialed into our mental health just as much as we would any other area of our life. So Autumn, I wanted to ask you, what led you to become a therapist and focus on the area that you do?
Yes, thank you. I always love this question because it, helps me to go back in time and really ground myself from the beginning. So I fell into it. I honestly fell into the whole psychology therapy thing, just like many things that are just destined to be. I just really felt connected to it, and I just wasn't able to put a word to it until I got older. So growing up, I was always very interested in human behavior. Why do people do the things they do, think the way they think? I was 7 thinking these things, and I was really intrigued by it, like the whole nature versus nurture debate. Like I found out about that at like middle school, and I was like, yeah, like how can I learn more? How can I get more of that? And I thought I wanted to be a vet for a very, very long time. And then I took chemistry in high school, and I quickly realized that that was not my ministry. So I was speaking with my mom, who was in school, awesome lady, who was in school studying psychology, got to talking with her about her classes. I was like, okay, yeah, this sounds kind of like what I would always like to do anyway. Took Psych 101 in college, and it was, you know, onward from there. And I took a counseling technique class in college, and I was like, yeah, this is it. This is my path. And over time, I, did the research, and I went to Johns Hopkins University's counseling program, their master's program, graduated in 2020. I was really connected to their mission in diversity and social justice, which is something that I have been that I felt very connected to from a young age as well. I knew early on what urban plight looked like. I knew that it took some kind of disadvantage over the people, myself, and the people that I love, and the people in my community. And again, I didn't know the words for it until I got older and I got more education, more learning, more opportunity, more networking. And I learned like, oh, this is social injustice. Okay. Don't like this. And I realized that, I can blend social justice and mental health together. And Johns Hopkins helped me to really frame that for myself, of course. And yeah, and so, it was just a blend, as you can hear, like it was just a blend of many
Yeah,
different things in my life that really just led me here, like any journey, like any journey.
true.
Um, and so here
Yeah.
we are.
I know, and it's interesting that you have these things that you're passionate about, and then like as you become educated, you learn, oh, there's a phrase for this. Like there are words for this, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel, or it makes it easier to articulate the things that you're passionate about. But I was going to ask,
Mhm.
with that background and with those things that you are passionate about, what are the most common traumas that you see, and that you wish people were more aware of or interested in fixing? And it can be pre-pandemic, or like since you since you started with the clinical side during the pandemic, it can be related to that as well.
Yes, and so excuse me, this question really it's really making me think and reflect, because trauma is such a spectrum. It's
Mm,
such a broad spectrum, right? And so it's just like each trauma looks different and manifests differently, and just But honestly, I was just like, you know what? Go with your gut. And in my gut, what popped up was racial and generational trauma. And I wanted to, really elaborate on that, because I feel like it is so woven into our day to day that is like invisible, so to speak, and we don't always have a conscious mind of it, or we're not always so aware of it, and what it looks like and how it impacts us on a day to day basis, because it is, part of the culture, and it's been it's been America, or the society, for a very long time. And that it's traumatic. It's a very traumatic experience. And far as, like, the racial trauma, because racial trauma is, rooted in, psychological, physical violence and aggression, and really uncertain of the future, your future, like that's traumatic. And so, you're generationally, you're learning that trauma, and you're passing it down and down and down and down to the next, and it's like an ongoing cycle, and it kind of reinforces it. And that makes it even that kind of, definitely deepens the problem, because then it kind of evolves, and it starts to look a little different over time, but it's still there, and the
mm.
roots are still there. And so then it gets complicated and complex, and it becomes even more normalized, so to speak. So I think those, and then so when I speak to a lot of my clients, I'm always asking about family. Like by the third session, I'm asking you about your family. Like, you need to tell me about your childhood, because there's going to be so many things you can tell me about your family that's going to help me tell you about you, and then it's also going to help me tell you about the environment and the culture and all of those things. So this is, they've come to me with the, concerns, and then I'll take it a little deeper. So, and then I learned that these are common. This is very common, for me.
Nice. So, in the time that you've been practicing, and I guess just from your life experience, because you mentioned from a young age that you've had interest in this area, have you seen a difference in the acceptance of therapy through the different generations?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I actually just, um, was when it comes to, like, great segue, because I was, just talking about generational patterns, and going generation to generation. And I'm definitely noticing, especially with the pandemic, there's been a lot of push on mental health awareness and taking care of your mental hygiene and prioritizing it. And so that a lot of young people, especially on social media, especially on technology, where most, what I don't know the numbers, 18 to 33-year-olds are, something like that, whatever the studies are saying these days. But a lot of young folks, millennials, and and Gen Z, I don't know, the younger folks are, really tapping into this. And not only are they doing that, they're like really sharing it with their elder, family members and relatives, and having those conversations at the dinner table now. And it's like in your face, like, for example, with the Simone Biles, like, I'm not doing this, my mental health is not in the state that I want to be. Like, that was international news, and like, so more people are speaking about it, to Raji B. Henson, and so people are normalizing the conversation. Of course, more work is needed, but I definitely am seeing a change or a shift in trends here, and technology is definitely like putting the gas into the tank and getting it to go. And so yeah, it's definitely something I'm excited for.
Yeah. So as you were talking, I was thinking about this show called A Million Little Things. And I need to go back to it and watch the rest of the season. They might even have a second season now. But I remember a scene where one of the guys was really struggling with like depression, severe depression. And he went to his parents and was like trying to talk to them and figure out, hey, like, is this something that you guys have experienced? Like, or is it just me? And it was a little bit like disappointing. So this was the black character in the show. I think he might have been the only black character in the show, but he goes to his dad, and his dad's like, "Oh, son, everybody gets sad." But come to find out, thankfully, like the mom was listening, and I think she might
Mm,
have said, like, no, this is something that your dad has been going through for quite some time, and it's way deeper than, oh, everybody gets sad sometimes. Like, he really
mm.
struggles with that. So I don't know where things went from there because I hadn't watched it in a while, but but
Don't
it
worry, girl,
seemed
we
like a
got the
good show.
point.
Don't take what like it seemed like a really good show, and obviously it's like highlighting some of the stuff that we're talking about now. But I wanted to ask you,
Mhm.
Miyosh, like, do you notice a difference in like the generations and how receptive they are to therapy?
Yeah, I can definitely see a difference. And I agree with everything that Autumn said. It's definitely more in your face now. But I'd say for our parents' generation, for us millennials, I'd say that the biggest difference that I've seen is proximity and
Mm,
accessibility to
Mm,
therapy. So I just think about my parents' generation and just their access to it, whether it was how do we even find it if we are interested, and then also from like a financial standpoint, like, okay, is this something that I can even afford, because I don't even know if health insurance and things like that would have covered those types of services outside of maybe something that was already diagnosed. So I'd say that
mhm,
I think a lot of their receptiveness to it is just that they maybe weren't exposed to it or had proximity to it from a younger age for them, versus us. Now we have apps like BetterHelp and all these different, resources kind of at our fingertips. And, I wonder if they had that type of access, would
mm,
they just be more open to it because it was a part of the culture at the time of their youth?
yeah,
mhm,
and even now, I think it's hard to break out of how things were seen maybe when they were growing up. So it's like, oh, you don't really go to a therapist unless you need like it's until
Mhm.
you're like breaking down, which
mhm,
if you're someone who is high performing, I don't know that that's easy to spot, So yeah, I definitely also notice a difference between how receptive we are and the generations coming behind us to therapy versus the generation before us. So
mhm,
I kind of want to switch gears just a little bit because we have talked about some heavy issue. Well, this whole thing is a huge and heavy issue. So yeah, this doesn't necessarily like go away from that. But I wanted to talk about something that is often shown on social media and that I have seen in media since I was like a really young girl. And I'm
mm.
curious to hear like how both of you feel about it, but of course, Autumn, will start with you. And that's like the term strong Black woman, what it used to be and kind of its evolution now. What thoughts do you have around that?
Yes, and so, I definitely, can relate to, the strong Black woman uh phenomenon, I guess you can say, even on like a personal level. All my family is definitely matriarchal, women everywhere, women paying bills, doing things, and so it was definitely some, just personally, I think, and like many folks, I can't speak for everyone, but I really feel like generally speaking, like, this term or this position, so to speak, or this status was promoted, it was encouraged, it was praised, so to speak. But over time, as I continue to just really growing my own womanhood, and my understanding of the world around me, I'm definitely seeing an evolution. I'm definitely seeing like a shift in my own vision, but in that I'm able to see that other people are also kind of on the same wavelength as well. And so, doing in my research and just doing the things I do, I've learned that, or I've connected that, Black women historically, when they were enslaved, they had to nurse, those who enslaved them children, and, their own children, and they had to tend to their own works and duties, while also caring for the family. And then that kind of just like carried on over time. And, it gave this concept or this idea that we cannot put ourselves first, always self-sacrificing, always giving up ourselves for the greater community or the greater good, so to speak, and really getting lost in the sauce, in lack of better words, because then, I really feel like over time, because of that, because of, I guess you could say, like those lack of boundaries, people may start to take advantage and overlook, or not really pay you, really give you your flowers, give you your flowers.
Yeah.
And you know what? And we see that. And the first thought that came to mind was like, with Breonna Taylor, and how it was months until we got any media coverage on her. And countless other Black women. And when I say Black women, I mean all women, even women, trans Black women. And I really think it's really important, when it comes down to the idea of the strong Black woman. It is really outdated, if you ask me, because the time we're on self-care time. We have to put ourselves first, because like we can't help others if we can't be good to ourselves. So I really feel like it's retrogressive in nature, really, and especially because as Black women, we are a spectrum as well. Like, we have a lot of different other values, a lot of different other traits and characteristics that make us, the top notch of the totem pole, if you ask me. Well, it's actually facts, but whatever. So it's just like, like I really feel like, being boxed in, and it really, because of that box, because of that category, like that categorization, like it's hard for us. It's like we have our own glass ceiling, so to speak, So I really think it's outdated, and it's weighing us down, and it's really time to start, kicking your feet up and resting.
Yes, we're on self-care time. I love that.
Yes.
Mia, you had
Yes,
something
we
to say?
are.
Yes, I definitely agree that I have seen a shift, and I myself and other Black women of my age group, I've seen really pushing back in terms of endorsing that term or statement about us, just because, as you mentioned, it does put us in a box, and it leaves minimal room for us to have certain feelings and emotions, because people just assume that we're strong. And even when we are in a place of hurt and pain, those concerns aren't taken seriously. I mean, you'd have to be under a rock if you haven't heard anything about just the situation in terms of the hospital system and Black women in delivering, them assuming that we have superhuman strength. And so, yeah, I just think that people, when they like to assume that we're strong and kind of like push us in that position, I think because it alleviates them as well of certain things if we're filling that strong space. So I can definitely say that for me, I don't like to hear it. I don't endorse it. And, I would encourage really any woman, like, even if you feel like, hey, I am strong, just be mindful of leaning so far in that direction, because we want to be given the room and space to be soft, feminine, and be women as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like strength in and of itself is not even a bad thing, but when it's what's
not
expected of you, like in every situation, like, dang, I don't get no nuance or nothing. Like, I just got to be strong 24/7, 365. Like, that is exhausting. And we don't even require that of most men. So why are you requiring that of little old me, So it's like, we understand everybody has to exhibit strength at some point, but don't take this strength and like make it my whole identity just because I'm a little bit more melanated, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I'd also add to that is I think that people will put more onto you either intentionally or unintentionally, or even change their behavior. It's like if they observe, like, oh, you have it together. Oh, you're strong. You seem like you can take a lot. It's almost like some people will use that as rhyme or reasoning to give you more.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if y'all have seen Encanto, but
No, what's that?
it's a Disney movie that is, it's not fairly, it's still kind of new. It's like the newest Disney movie, but I only heard about it because people kept talking about, we don't talk about Bruno, and I'm like, where is this from? Like, why am I out of the loop?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Okay, yes. So it comes from the movie Encanto. It's on Disney Plus right now. I mean, that could have been my girl. What's good this time too? But there is a character in there who is strong, and so people are just like, okay, that's her gift. Strength is her gift. So even though she's like broken down, um, people just expect her to still perform, and it does
Mm-hmm.
become like too heavy. So I think you should. I think you would like it. Well, I think anybody would like it because I like it, but just to go back to like Autumn saying, like, I've seen a shift in our generation, and Miosha, you echoing that. It's interesting that Autumn was talking about things that are passed down, because I do think that title has been passed down. So I think it's so incredible that our generation is like, we don't want that title that's been passed down. Like, we can actually choose, especially now with the resources and like with the reach that we have with social media. I love that for us. Like, I love that we're taking a stance and saying, we don't want this anymore. Like, don't say that to
Mm-hmm.
me. So, yeah, just wanted to point out those few things. But then, Autumn, I do want to ask you, just in line with like things that we've seen on the internet and popular things that we've seen, there's this idea of the strong friend. And I want to ask you, from your perspective, how do people check on the strong friend? And isn't it like limited maybe by how vulnerable the strong friend is, or how open they are about what's going on?
Oh yes, and so definitely connected to what we've been talking about so far for sure. And when I was here, as you said, it's like strong. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's so subjective, and so it can mean different. Strong can look differently for many different people. So I'll just keep it general, especially because when we're talking about like relationships, like friendships, relationships, date, any kind of relationship, I always strive to encourage people to, one, like, look at the relationship with yourself. Okay, like, are you the strong friend? Like, you want to help the strong friend, but are you the strong friend? And so it's just like, I think it's really important for us to have those self-reflections. But I also think that's helpful because when we approach that strong friends, we very empathetic, to use those communication skills, active listening, and really tapping into that. But I definitely think that in addition to that, looking into yourself, modeling what it looks like to be strong but soft. Like, I love what you were saying there, Miosha. Be strong. I'm strong, but I am also soft. And so it's like, before we come up to a person, it's like, are you modeling that same behavior as well? I just, from a standpoint of, I guess you were saying backing up your words, before you go to that strong friend, really checking in with yourself first. Because in a relationship, it takes two. So making sure you good too, right? And then when that times comes when you do feel comfortable, or you notice some things about your friend, and you may be worried about your friend and they may be a little off, or you just, you notice that they've been putting a lot of more energy, maybe going to being burnt out. I think just being really genuine and being proactive is really one of the best ways to resolve any problem. And so just genuinely checking in on your friend, like, hey girl, how you doing? What's going on? And just really building that rapport, building a relationship. Sometimes people just want to talk. They don't want to talk about what's going on with them. And sometimes it just comes out naturally, like, therapy. You just start talking. Next thing you know, we're talking about childhood traumas. Just happens sometimes. So, just really building the friendship and just nurturing the space for your friends to even feel comfortable, because a lot of times the strong friend doesn't feel vulnerable. Like, it's nothing personal. But because they've been taught or learned or what have you, acquired this, mindset or attitude that I have to be strong for the sake of myself and others. Sometimes you just have to give them that space to like kind of ride it out, even though you may want to really step in and like, what you doing? And shake them up and like, hey girl, what's up? I think, sometimes just having that space and, once they are willing and, or if you do just have that relationship where you can just approach them directly, I think you can just also just be direct and assertive, like, hey, how can I help you right now? Like sometimes we don't want to be too quick to say what you tell them what they need. Like you need to calm down, you need to relax. Like you need to just take a vacation, you need to go on a date, swipe on Tinder. Like, no, like that can be dismissive sometimes. And so sometimes they're like, no, I just need a hug, really. Like that's all I really needed. Like I just need someone to like watch my dog for me this weekend and I'll be fine. And like, okay, I can do that. Like, sometimes it's just like asking them what they need. And if they like, I don't know what I need right now, it's like, okay, well, when you find out, let me know. Just know, again, nurturing the space. And so I think when it comes to this strong friend, like most of the things in my, even in my style and practice, like really giving them the autonomy to, come up to you and feel comfortable with you and just giving them the option to choose, to say, hey, I want to talk about this, or this is something that I want help with and need help with. And so, it can be really empowering sometimes.
Yes.
You said a lot, girl.
Well, that look
in the good way. Just because
that look within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also like with the nurturing the space or just calling to just have a conversation, because I've noticed that I won't open up about what's going on if you're just doing a quick check-in. I will not. Like we have to talk about the Lakers. We have to talk about I don't know, clothes, the celebrity drama, whatever. We have to have like several conversations before I'm like, oh, well, since they're on the phone, let me just open up about what's going on with me. So I really love that you said that.
Yeah, I'd say as far as checking in on the strong friend, I love that you talked about looking within and kind of the behavior that you're emulating. And a lot of times our friends have a lot in common with us. So you might be on that same strong friend wavelength and not even notice it in yourself. But what I'd say is checking in with the friend, but letting them know that it's okay, that they don't have it all together, and just reassuring them that you don't have to be perfect. There will be speed bumps, struggles, failures in life, and maybe even taking that as an opportunity to be vulnerable with them, assuming that you have that closeness there. And hopefully they'll open up as well to let you know what's going on. I just think that as women, as Black women, there's a lot of pressure to just be all put together. And that the expectations are so high to be buttoned up. You need this, this, and this, and this. Your motherhood needs to look like this, and this. Your kids need to be this, and this. There's so much pressure there. And I just think that we need to have spaces where we let our friends know that, girl, it's okay that you don't have it all together, because I don't have it all together. We don't have it all together.
Okay. And we won't.
And we won't.
That
and that's okay.
Period.
Gotta have that grace.
I remember what I wanted to say. I wrote it down so I don't forget this time. But just to piggyback off of what Miosha said, like I went to see a friend the other day, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, my child's hair isn't done." And I was like, "Who is she apologizing to?" Like, what? I was like, why are you apologizing to me? And first of all, the kid's hair looked fine to me. I was like, I didn't even think anything of it coming up. So it's really like you said, checking in with yourself and realizing, okay, maybe I am putting these expectations on myself that other people aren't. But the other thing I was gonna say was like, I think I in some ways can be that quote unquote strong friend. And what I wanted to say was that my friendships have saved me because I don't have to be strong with them. So like they're always, because they're like, oh, I think you're acting this way in so many other capacities. Like they have been like that space where I can just exist and not have to be put together and not have to be anything in particular. So yeah, shout out to friendships. That's all.
Oh my goodness. I had that realization in therapy, actually, honesty hour, everybody. So I was having a conversation. I don't mind sharing this. I was having, because it's going very much on the topic, but I was having this conversation with my therapist. Like, I'm like, I don't know why I don't feel like as close to family as I do with my friends. Like, what's up with that? Like, I felt this way for a very long time. Like, why do I do that? And as we got to talking, she was like, oh, it sounds like with your friends, you can let your guard down. You don't have to be like put on this facade. You don't have to have this performance, this mask. Versus like with your family, like you're the oldest, so it's like you got all these expectations on you. So with your friends, just like, oh, you can finally just like perfect. That it kind of, when you said exist, Samaria, like that really clicked with me. Like I can just exist with my friends. I don't have to just, worry. That's why it's so important to have a great support system, y'all. It's so important to have a solid tribe.
Yes. And speaking of support systems, so switching gears again. Yeah, so we've talked a lot about the strong friend, and you mentioned having a support system. So going back to therapy, do you think that every person needs therapy? And if so, do you see it as something that's lifelong, or is it just for a period of time, or does it just depend on the current situation that they're in?
Yeah. Ooh, I so love this question because I actually just posted a story like, what, like 36 hours ago, maybe less, on this same topic. And I'm just like, okay, stars align, universe doing this thing. But yeah, I so if you would have asked me this question in 2020, do you think everyone needs therapy? I would have said yes. And this is my answer would have been, I came across this one meme saying like, if you were ever a child at a point in your life, then you should go to therapy. And I was like, this is so true. Because as kids, like we experience so much and we learn so much, and we're like sponges. And some of the things that we soak up isn't always things that are aligned with us, serve us, and the best for us. And so sometimes therapy is a great way to unpack that and figure out what's best for you. But then now 2022 autumn, I'm thinking like, yes, but differently, because I'm learning that therapy doesn't look just one way. I like coaching. Life coaching sounds cool. Like, I think that, going to a life coach with a specific goal in mind, a specific, outcome that you're looking for, and them having you strategize is great. Now, if you're looking for something clinical, if you're looking for someone, clinically, to work with you through those childhood traumas, that's a therapist now. But, then there's, yoga and meditation, and those are forms of therapy, dance therapy, and ecotherapy. Like there's so many different types of therapy. So depending what you need, but I do believe that you need to have some kind of outlet for sure, 100%. And I'm, of course, I'm a little biased because I think therapy can definitely knock out majority of those things. But I also understand that everything isn't for everyone, and so I don't try to push therapy on everyone. But I do encourage you to have some kind of outlet because you cannot bottle it in. It cannot stay there, and everyone has some work to do. We all got work to do. So I do believe that. Does everyone have work to do? Yes. Does everyone have to go to therapy to do it? Maybe not. But there, you got to do the work. You got to do the work, and you have to do it efficiently and healthy and functionally and healthy as possible, for sure. Now, and now when you say, lifelong, if you do decide that therapy is a decision you want to take up, because it's very courageous to do. And so if you decide to make that courageous decision, this is something I do feel firm about. I don't believe therapy is to be lifelong, unless of course you have those, certain, conditions and severe psychiatric diagnoses that may require long-term maintenance and care, of course. But I think just for the, on a broader scale of things, I think therapy is meant to give you the tools that you already had. I'll help you out to see them, sharpen them up, enhance them, find new tools that connect with you in the time that you're in, or the space that you're in at that time, and send you on your way so that you can continue to to handle life with those tools. I'm a strong believer in being independent. I'm a strong believer in being, having your own agency, and being able that, having that trust within yourself that you can solve problems. Of course, reaching out to people, of course we're naturally social beings and we depend on people, but to some extent, I think, therapy is just, it's like when you're in a NASCAR track and you got to stop and you got to get the oil engine and everything greased, the oil, the power wash. I don't know what they do at that pit stop in a NASCAR track thing, but it's kind of like that. That's the best way I can put it as a metaphor, and then see right back around, right? Now I also believe that sometimes we come to different phases in our lives. Like, I went to therapy when I was a college student, and then once I got into college, I felt great. I was fine, and then I got engaged and married. Now I'm in a whole different phase of my life. And now it's like a lot of changes happening and I need to talk to a new therapist about that. And so, I believe that I encourage that actually, because we're not going to be the same person all the time. We evolve as well. And sometimes we need some help navigating those changes and those adjustments. So I encourage that for sure. But I mean, personally in my style, I don't like for my clients to feel like they have to see me forever. I want them to be able to feel empowered enough to know that they can handle things because I'm not always going to be here or available. I might change. I might get the bigger bag. Gotta go. So I'm gonna need you to be okay with me not being here. So that's how I feel about that.
Oh man, love that. And then just to close things up, because we're almost at time. But yeah, just to close things up, just like briefly respond to this tweet that we saw, especially since you started clinically working in the pandemic. But the tweet said, Black women don't often recognize they're struggling with depression or anxiety. Instead, they think they're failing.
Yes. And so I definitely resonate with this because this is something I talk about often, even just in my sessions and things. Like anxiety and depression is heavily rooted in this feelings of failure and even perfectionism. And just because we have like these unrealistic expectations set upon ourselves, that we feel like if we don't match those rules or if we don't, meet that criteria, we are, I guess you can say, we feel reduced or inadequate, so to speak. So, and then it's like, but what's the reality? That you're really setting expectations for something that doesn't even match with your reality. And so that's going to leave us feeling some kind of emotional distress or injury. And so I think it's really important for us to get real with ourselves. And sometimes that requires having someone objective coming in, whether that's a friend, a coach, a therapist, a mentor, someone, just coming in. It's like, actually, like that doesn't, because sometimes when we're in the moment, we can't really see it until we have an opportunity to step outside of it. So that's sometimes why it becomes internalized. But yeah, all those unrealistic expectations, watch out for that word should and supposed to. Like it should be like this, it's supposed to be like it's not though. So you got to move forward, So yeah, ladies, I think it's really important. Yes, Black women especially. I think it's really important for you to recognize those real expectations that matches your reality and start moving in that, and start moving and making decisions based on that foundation. And I think that's when a little emotional relief can follow.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Well, listen, we have thoroughly enjoyed having you on, Autumn. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence and your expertise. To our audience, thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of the Girlfriends and Goals podcast. You've heard our thoughts on this topic. We'd love to hear yours as well. So make sure you follow us on Instagram at Girlfriends and Goals podcast, where we'll continue this conversation over the next week. If you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and do that now. And don't forget to rate, review, and share. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
Bye.